What I wanted to do is take some time and go over some of the after events in the life of Jesus. So I want to go right to the cross and talk about something that happened immediately when he died. Then I want to move to Thomas and the Emmaus Road and some of these other events. Okay, so we're going to be in the afterglow of Easter for a little while. Okay? Usually, there's about 6 or 7 things that happen, but you only have 2 weeks, and then everybody's tired of Easter. Okay? I think Easter is just starting. So, yeah. You look like a happening chick today. Okay? So, all right. Has anybody ever heard the song, "It's Too Late, Baby, Now It's Too Late"? Carole King? Okay. We're going to talk about the centurion. Surely this was the Son of God. So he sees all the events that happens. Jesus dies, the earthquakes, the night over the darkness over the light, all the radical moments, and that was his summation. And sometimes you figure stuff out a little bit too late in life. And that seems to be his problem. And actually, centurions do pretty well in the New Testament. Remember, there was a centurion who sent his servant to go ask Jesus. The thing is, you don't have to come to my house. I have people under authority of me. I can tell them to do this, do that. You can just say the word. So he has an awareness of the power of Jesus Christ. You don't even have to come to my house. You can just be, you're God. And Jesus is impressed with that centurion. There was another centurion where, the guy that is the first convert, Gentile convert, in Acts chapter 10, I believe it is. Okay? So, Cornelius, the Holy Spirit moved through him. And there's another centurion where this man has done a lot for the temple, and for our people. So centurions, they have a pretty good role when it comes to New Testament. And the first person to offer a positive response about Jesus after the cross is a centurion. And we're tempted to say, well, what took you so long? If you would have figured this out, then we could have maybe saved Jesus from dying on the cross, and you killed the Son of God. That's a big whoopsie that you probably don't want on your resume when you go to heaven. Just, it's enough to get you a coffin, okay? And it was probably his soldiers who were in charge of the scourging, the 37 lashes, okay? The beating, the mocking, the pounding, the crown into his head, putting him on the cross, nailing his hands and feet in. It's probably his guys. All right? Parading them through town. So, this centurion, we don't have a lot of warm fuzzies towards him. His centurions his soldiers who thrust a sword into his side. Why did you have to do all that to Jesus? And let's take a moment for an uncomfortable conversation. Hindsight, 2020, I can just think about things I did with my kids and just shudder. Oh, if only I would have handled it differently. If only I wouldn't have said that. If only I would have just not... I wish I would have thought about it first, We would have behaved differently. And the fact of the matter is, I don't know if you've ever planned, if I'm ever in this situation, Here's how I'm going to deal with it. I give you a perfect example. If I was going to die, this is the conversation that I would have with God. I had it all planned out. And so I hit the black ice going 80 miles an hour in the state of Washington, and my car is going towards the railing, and we're on a bridge, and the underpass is far way down, and as I'm heading towards the railing, I say, "Here we go." Now, that's not what I planned on saying when I'm about to die and meet my Maker. I had this theological statement and deep prayer and honest confession all planned out, and here we go is not, or the decisions we make. If only we would have made it differently. I wouldn't have got an abortion. I wouldn't have got a divorce. I would have stayed in school. I would have invested differently. I would have, whatever it is, you can fill in the blank. And there's always that person who comes along and says, "Well, you know what you should have done." And you just hate that person. I know what I should have done now. Anybody can be a Monday morning quarterback. But, in the moment, in the crisis decision-making time, we don't always handle it well. And, we got people with quick answers. I think about Eve in the Garden of Eden. She's looking at the fruit, and the snake's talking to her. Hey, it's tasty. And look how beautiful it is. And she says, well, we're not allowed to eat this. Well, you won't die. Boom, immediately. A lie. Just think about it. Here it is. The snake's talking to you. You remember what God said. Somebody contradicts what God says. I always knew who I could go to get godly advice and the advice that I really wanted to take. Okay? And I remember those guys. If I felt like doing wrong, I knew exactly who would give me the thumbs up. And, Satan has answers today. There's no hell. You can do whatever you want. Everybody's going to be saved. It won't hurt. It'll only be one time. The deeper truths, sometimes it takes more research and diving in. This is the big conversation I have with so many people today. They dismiss Christianity off of a whim, a quick, flippant statement. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You just made a statement that is not accurate. I say that all the time. Well, that's your opinion. I go, no, it's not my opinion. My opinion is probably more in line with your opinion. But what the Bible says is this. And you just need to do a little research. I'll tell you what, stand right here and let me pull out my phone and let's pull this up right here, right now. And if they give you the time, you can pull up the answer and explain this thing that they flippantly reject, some angle of Christianity. Okay? And I'm telling you, that's how easy it is. That's how quick you can do it. But somebody has to stand up and redirect the conversation. And that's you and me supposed to do this. But let's go back to that difficult place where you and I have a perception lag, where we fail to figure it out. Remember, I was talking about Mary Magdalene. She's in the presence of Jesus. The disciples on the Emmaus Road, in the presence of Jesus. Now, those guys get a break because it says in the Bible that this guy, he chose to not reveal himself. It doesn't say that about Mary. Mary, it's grief. Mary has a different idea about Jesus. She assumes he's dead. She wants to take care of the body. And so a lot of times, what we think gets in the way of what God wants to do. Paul says we see through a glass dimly on this side of eternity. Okay? Which means, one, we're going to see clearly when we get to the other side, okay? And two, something that I've been doing recently is asking for the mind of Christ. I was Give me wisdom, God. James 1:5. Anybody who asks gets it. I wasn't getting any wisdom. So, all of a sudden one day, I think I was watching the Joseph Prince, and he says, you need to be asking for the mind of Christ. And so I started asking, Lord, give me the mind of Christ. And those articulation problems, boom, I was able to pull down the word that I wanted, remember the person's name, and, be smooth. When you're a preacher, you want to be smooth, You don't want to go, It's really embarrassing when you have that long pause where you're trying to find a word. But you know what else happened? All of a sudden, some attitudes that I kept trying to surrender were immediately surrendered. I wasn't having this angry moment. I wasn't having this selfish moment. I wasn't being drawn into petty moments. I was quick to reframe with grace. I had the mind of Christ on the forefront of my mind. And I'm telling you, I noticed the difference. It's happened the last 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm excited. I just want to pass this on to you. This is how you do it. Well, Jesus breathed his last. That was the Son of God. Okay? And, well, that was. How many of us lug around regrets? I'm coming back to this because this is a big issue. We got regrets. And some of us were just at that spot where it's too late to do anything about it now. But I'm going to argue that if you're still breathing, God still wants to make moves in your life. He still wants to answer prayers. I've had a really big one happen in the last 8 days. And I'm noticing, oh my, I prayed really intensely, and all of a sudden somebody that I was praying about started coming to church to every service. I'm like, oh my goodness. I've been praying intensely, and they're coming to church regularly. Wow. I connected the dots. Okay? And I'm telling you, he's alive. He wants to answer prayers. And a lot of those things those regrets we lug around, we can let them say, well, I messed up life. Oh, well, I guess that, it's over for me. I'm just waiting to die. I don't even know why I'm living anymore. By the way, these are statements that I hear from lots of people. These aren't just, me creating comments. People say this stuff. They mean this stuff. I had to sit in the hospital room with someone last week and argue with them that they didn't want to just die. And argue with them all the times God has shown up recently in their life. Argue with them that, yes, you're going through these difficult times, however, God has it. I had to argue them out of just wanting to die. It's just, this is what's happening. People, they get so depressed, so upset. And this is what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that people are going to miss the resurrected Lord in their life. You heard about the little boy, his family took him to the ocean for a week's vacation, and he was deathly afraid of the water. Every time they tried to put him in, he'd scream, that horrible scream that everybody, okay, he's not going in today. Got him in on the last day. Then he screams that horrible scream. What's wrong? I can't believe I waited this long to go into the ocean. I think sometimes that's going to be Christianity. You mean I could have had this really cool friendship with God? You mean that I could have prayed with authority? You mean that he would have answered prayers if I would have taken the time to put the extra in for the extraordinary experience? Yes. And I don't want you to have spiritual regrets. And I'll say to an older, mature faith crowd that you have something that other people don't have. You have decades of walking with the Lord. You've worked through some things. You've gone through some experiences. You've noticed the patterns. Or you're aware of your own brokenness. There's kind of some peace when you realize, all right, I'm aware that this is a weakness of mine. This is not a good routine thought process that I have. And you're able just to, I know I'm inclined to be this way, so let me grab it and stop it and put faith in place instead. Okay, you have the maturity. I think God's going to answer your prayers if you decide, I'm going to pray for my children that aren't coming to church anymore. I'm going to pray for my friend to get healed because I know God still wants to work in their life. I'm going to pray for me to still conquer my awkward inclination in this part of my personality. Okay? Instead of just going, oh, that's who I am, I'll always be this way. No, I think the Lord has fun moving and molding and reshaping us. Because for us, time, we measure time differently. Time is of the essence. Now means more to you and me. All right? What did the Pennsylvania Dutch say? We're too soon old and too late smart. Okay? Yeah. Or how about, I don't know, have you heard about the workaholics that once I quit work, then I'll start living the way I want to, and they die a month later? Okay, I always hear these stories. Yeah. Why don't we just start living now? Terry comes up to me and says, you need to take a vacation. And, you know, I got one planned at the end of April. But you know what else I do? I have a devotional life, which is a vacation for me every day. And I have a workout moment where I'm trying to get strong every day. And I have my walks where I communicate with my spouse every day. I've worked into my daily routine some vacation-esque moments so that I'm not, diminished. I replenish throughout the day. And obviously the most important one is that devotional life. I just think that reading the Bible is so much fun because there's a personal God who's on the other end of your eyes. And He wants to come alive in your mind and show you new insights. It's absolutely fantastically beautiful, this relationship that God has established with us, okay? So, Judas, he took his regrets, and what did he do? He went out and hung himself. Peter stayed connected to the Lord, got fully restored. And Max Lucado tells about the conscience fund in the U.S. government has. Tons of letters come in. Apparently, they collect $45,000 annually. I stole 2 8-cent stamps. Or I stole a blanket back in World War II. Or, I put these coins on the railroad tracks that trains ran over. And so imagine carrying guilt like that for decades. Oh my. Just let me tell you some of the big ticket items that people carry. And they come into my office and they drop some hot potatoes in front of me. But here's the deal. You have to know something. God already forgave that. And here's what all of us need to remember. The moment you say, oh my gosh, Lord, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Boom, forgiven. Now we've just started the guilt trip, not realizing the very first statement ended the guilt trip. You could have been done with the guilt trip. Forgive me, you're forgiven. Let me now step into a relationship with God. But we're like, oh no, forgive me. And then we work it over. And we coulda, woulda, shoulda. And I can't believe God He'll never accept me. He'll never forgive me. And you can go decades in neutral with God if you don't believe that He's alive, believe that the cross released forgiveness, believe in the resurrection, and believe that you can leave it all in the past. All right? This is a big deal. So, I don't want you dragging your bag of failures into the future anymore. You know, of course you would have controlled your temper with the kids. Of course you wouldn't have made that bad move. Of course you would have turned the other cheek. Of course you would have saved the relationship. But you know, the thing about God is our failures are not the last word. Okay, the thing about God is we belong to a God who's at best when we're at our worst. Just try to process that. Because what is the best of God? Is it not His forgiveness and grace? Isn't that when you're just blown away? You know, you see the mountains. One of my friends, he's a world traveler, and he says, you know, you see this radical mountain range when you get to India. And then you realize right behind that radical mountain range is another mountain range. You think it's so big that you just assume it's the sky. It's actually the Himalayas. You know, there's beautiful things out in nature. There's nothing as beautiful as when you stepped in a pothole and He walks up and says, wow, I forgive you. Let's go forward together. Unbelievable, that grace of God. Well, the centurion's response, this man was the Son of God. And, you know, he's a Roman, so maybe he believes in, you know, all the Roman gods and, you know, yeah. He has a past tense understanding, but I talked about this on Easter Sunday. Jesus is a present tense faith, a present continuous believe. Do you believe is present continuous. He's asking Martha, do you believe I am the resurrection and the life? So notice in this, I am the name of God, the resurrection, I can raise the dead, and the life in its present continuous. That's how she would have understood this. That's the way it was presented to her. And that's what Jesus is saying to you and me. God is presently and will continuously be available to you if you want to tap into believing in Him. Okay? And so, wow. It's fun to look at the Bible and you read, you know, Daniel in the lion's den, or Moses parting the sea, you know, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire, and you think, man, God used to be amazing. Right? No. He's answering prayers, and He's doing radical miracles, and He's showing up in big ways, and He does mind-blowing stuff still. The only thing for me is I get jealous when I read about somebody. Remember we talked about last week when that one missionary had the wall of fire all around him, and I'm like, wow, yeah, I want to believe like that. And they didn't believe it. They just wanted to have their final we're going to die prayer. And God shows up in a big way. So imagine if you do believe what you might see put into motion. Okay? So I think for you and me, the crucial question is did God move in your past, but what is God doing in your life right now? And I'm actually going to sit down on this one. What is God doing in your life right now? This is a great question because you just heard about how God's available. You just heard about that Jesus is alive. You just heard about Jesus is interested. You know, in Ezekiel 37, it says, it's fun. You go there and it says, Son of man, say to this dead body, arise. All these dead bodies. Now, do you know what God always called Ezekiel? Mortal. That was his name. Hey, mortal, say this. Hey, mortal, do that. Hey, mortal. If you go through Ezekiel, I underline it because it's kind of humorous. Hey, mortal, that was his name. He gets to Ezekiel 37, Son of man. Now, what did Jesus always say about himself? Son of man. So all of a sudden there's a shift. And the Son of Man is speaking to the graves, and those people are, and he says this, I will bring you out of your graves. So Jesus is all about bringing you out of your brokenness, bringing you out of your bad attitude, your past fears, your future fears, your struggling moments now, your regrets. He is alive. He's available now. And whatever happened in the past, it's in the past. And if you leave it in the past, you're free to go forward. If you keep holding on to the past, you don't get to go forward. What happened, happened. And all that matters is you're connected to God right here, right now. And you can pray backwards and say, Lord, would you heal so-and-so? You can pray forward, Lord, I'm worried about those I care about. But you can activate him right here, right now, and that's what he wants to do. Okay, I'll tell you a weird story. I'm talking to this woman, and she is in such deep despair. Something happened, and no words could heal the pain. And it wasn't I just had somebody who lost a child. Actually, I've had 3 people who've lost children in this past season. Unfathomable pain, right? This wasn't anything like that. And they're in such deep pain and deep despair, and she believes that God forgave her sins. She believes that she's going to go to heaven, but there was no powerful Jesus to call on to get her through this moment. And I remember being baffled, and I was circling around trying to, but the Lord will give you an insight. But the Lord's available. But if and she just would not receive anything. And I thought, wow, I wonder how many times we're like that. He could handle that problem, that financial problem, that health problem, that future issue, that whatever it is, but we won't receive it. He's alive, present, continuously available. And I need you to take that home with you today and apply it to your life and apply it to your situation. Okay? Because otherwise, we mismanage our past pains. We rationalize them, we repress them, we deny them, we try to get distracted from them, we anesthetize ourselves so we don't feel the pain, and your life is basically defined by the pain. And one day you're going to die and go to heaven. And that's just not what Jesus had in mind. Well, got regrets? Get in line with the rest of us. But here's the good news. You belong to a God who just loves to step into our hurting moments and bring about amazing healing. So, with that in mind, I guess what I want to say is the gospel message is it's not too late. I guess what I want to say is now is the moment of insight. I guess what I'm going to say is it's not too late for a new beginning. And I think that the greatest accomplishment that you can have is an intimate friendship with God. And have you ever met somebody and you were instantly friends? You felt like you're the deepest friends you ever had. You've only known them this short period of time. For some of us, that's who God will be to you. Others of you, you've been walking with Jesus for a long time. I had fun. I think I told you a couple weeks ago, I was in Proverbs, and I got a new proverb, and then it was right next to an old proverb that I got when I was 16 years old, and now I'm 61 years old. And I go, wait a minute, 16, 61? That's a lot of proverbs in between. Yeah, it's a lifelong friendship. So either way, a short, amazing friendship, a lifelong friendship, but I think your friendship with God is the highlight of your entire Christian journey. Not about how many people you saved. I think it's really about how you understand who He is. So, that's what I want to... You wonder, was it a new beginning for the centurion? Did he go, well, that was the Son of God. I wish that I wasn't the guy that killed him. Okay? Let me go have a few beers and try to erase that memory. Did he think that way? Or did he go, wow, that was the Son of God? Because here's what usually happens. God then arranges this person to say that and someone else to say the other, and arrange a moment for you to be in the presence of someone where the gospel would have been presented to him. Yesterday, somebody was pointing out the dots. This happened and that happened, which brought about Sky missed Easter Sunday. Pastor, I wasn't there on Easter Sunday. I had to go to the hospital to my mother-in-law who's dying, and she's rejected God, but it was Easter Sunday, so I told her the Easter Sunday story and then was able to preach to her and reminded her that you used to go to church and you used to believe in the Lord, and this is the message, and her whole countenance changed. So I was mad that he wasn't at church, but I had to give him the free pass because he preached the gospel and brought somebody who was far off from the Lord back to the Lord, and the Lord used Easter to interrupt his normal routine, to give him the unique opportunity to bring up the gospel message, and then he moved. That happened to me today at 7 a.m. Okay? That conversation. And I wonder what happened at the cross where the centurion said, surely this was the Son of God. Was it when the earth quaked? Oh. Was it when the dark sky? I wonder if he was listening to Jesus' words, those words of forgiveness in response to the brutality being released upon him. Was it when he said, Father, I commit my spirit to you? And he started to realize, all of us have to return to the God one day. All of us are accountable to God. Was it the unusual dialogue where he's calling Jesus Father? That's kind of unique when someone's talking to God in such a very personal way. I wonder what moved him. What moves you? I already told you mine. It's not the Himalayas. It's not the great ocean sunsets. It's when I experience grace. Okay? But for all of us, we have our own. He has our own way of talking to us. He might talk to you with such gentleness. Now, Joanne, as you see the butterfly rest upon the puppy's tail. Okay? And for me, it's, hey, William, how many times do I have to tell you? And I know that voice. And you know his voice. And each one of us, we have this, he has this ability to speak exactly the way you need to hear it, the way you would understand it. And that's what's beautiful about God. Well, the challenge is, will we recognize him when he speaks to us? Because you know what? I don't recognize him when I'm in a hurry. I don't recognize him when I have an agenda. I don't want to be inconvenienced when I'm on my path. But you kind of realize, oh, that's what God does. He interrupts my path. He makes it inconvenient so that I have to stop for the God moment. The best possible thing that could happen in your day. Well, I think of it like the prodigal son, child, goes off, wasting his dad's money, wasting his life, messing things up, on the verge of starving to death, comes up with the completely inappropriate forgiveness plea. Okay? Which his father doesn't even listen to. He doesn't realize the father's been scanning the horizon, staying up at night, praying, worrying. But the moment he steps in, the father runs towards him, wraps his arms around him, restores him back into a relationship. Wow. That's the God that's too late. It's never too late. If you're breathing, He's got an agenda. Amen.